This is Selena Yvette, host of Stories from Planet Earth. Thanks for listening to the following show on Public House Media.
You're listening to Catch Up, an official news production of Public House Media.
Today is July 14th, 2020, and it's time to catch up on the news that you need to know about.
Today we're helping you catch up on President Trump commuting the sentence of Roger Stone,
The disappearance of Naya Rivera,
the Washington Redskins announcing they'll be changing their name,
and as always, ending with a bit of good news for you today.
We're your hosts, Dan Koenig
and Madeline Cum. Welcome to Catch Up.
President Donald Trump announced Friday that he would be commuting the sentence of Roger Stone, a longtime friend and Republican political consultant. Stone was convicted in November 2019 on 7 felony charges for obstructing a congressional investigation into Trump's 2016 campaign and possible ties to Russia, which Stone and Trump have both called, quote, a hoax and a witch hunt. We're joined now by Catch-Up news correspondent Nkwa Asonye to discuss this further. Nkwa, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Definitely. So I think the first thing I want to talk about is something to note, that this was a sentence that's being commuted and not a full-on pardon. Can you kind of detail the difference between those and kind of what that decision means now for Roger Stone?
Sure. Well, those two C words are thrown around a lot when it comes to the power of the presidency. So clemency is the overall power to alter or otherwise erase a prison sentence. What President Trump did was instead commute the sentence, meaning he can either cut it all the way short or totally disregard the time served, even though that conviction would still be on whomever's record. So in this case, all President Trump did was tell his boy to come home early.
So this is something that Trump has used in the past. He's really kind of thrown that clemency power around, especially on the Stone case in the last several months leading up to this point. And it's something that he's done over his presidency with other political allies. But something that's unique to this situation, Nkwa, is that Stone is the first one to have real hard ties to the president's campaign. What is the response been from this kind of situation, this unique situation, from those in Washington, D.C.?
It's generally been pretty negative. When you have Mitt Romney, who's been a Republican stalwart for nearly his entire career, when he is coming out and flaming the decision, you've got to figure that there isn't a lot of very high quality approvals on his list, if there are any approvals at all. In fact, referring to Mitt Romney in particular, he tweeted, "Unprecedented historic corruption. An American president commutes the sentence of a person convicted by a jury of lying to shield that very president." So there is not very much response that would be positive for the president in terms of his colleagues.
What about the positive response that we have seen? Well, at least maybe more so from what the Trump campaign has kind of said, what his supporters have come out in support of. What's been kind of like the reasoning that Trump has given behind this commuting of Roger Stone?
Well, he's rendered the whole thing as just righting a past wrong. He is in essence saying that being convicted by a jury of his peers was not good enough for him. It didn't pass his smell test. So as president, he was going to single-handedly reverse that decision. And that's a very slippery slope to operate on, because these sorts of powers can come under political sort of crossfire no matter which side is making the decision. But in a case like this, where it was specifically targeting whether or not the president's campaign was above board, this takes an extra amount of chutzpah to actually consider doing this. And they are rendering, both the president and everyone in his camp, they're rendering this as just righting a past wrong, further sustaining their claim that everything involving Russia is a hoax.
Nkwa, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this detailed situation. And as always, thanks.
Thank you.
Yesterday morning, a body was found at Lake Peru in California. This news coming 5 days after searching for Glee star Naya Rivera, who was reported missing last week Wednesday. Naya and her 4-year-old son rented a pontoon boat for the day. A nearby boat later discovered the 4-year-old asleep on the rental with no adult. Authorities discovered Naya Rivera's identification aboard the rental boat, along with an adult-sized life jacket. Divers and search personnel scoured the area for 5 days when they discovered a body that was confirmed to be Naya's on Monday at a 4 p.m. Central Time press conference. I quote, "We are confident the body we found is that of Naya Rivera. There is no indication of foul play or that this was a suicide," said Ventura County Sheriff Bill Ayub. The body will be officially identified through dental records at the Ventura County Coroner's Office. The body was found floating in the northeast area of the lake, and authorities believe the boat was drifting and Naya Rivera mustered enough energy to get her son back on the boat, but not herself. Her 4-year-old son told officials that his mom boosted him on the boat, and as he looked back, he saw her disappear under the water. An autopsy will be performed to determine the cause of death. This is a developing story. Please follow at Time for Catch Up to stay up to date with the latest.
After increased pressure from the public, advertisers, and other groups, the NFL's Washington Redskins announced yesterday that they would be changing their name ahead of the 2020 season. The announcement came just a few days after the franchise announced they would be taking, quote, a thorough review of the name, which has long been denounced as a racial slur for Native Americans. We now bring on Catch-Up Sports correspondent Kumari Darrington to discuss this further. Kumari, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Kumari, Washington's owner Dan Snyder, he has said numerous times in the past that he adamantly opposed changing the name, but this is the first time that this story kind of came to the public where we saw real financial pressure put on him to make a change. Do you feel the move is seen in a different light because it kind of looks like the move is more of a money decision by Snyder, or is it just a win to have a name change like this that was such a kind of a beacon for many on the left?
Well, obviously, this is seen as a money move by Daniel Snyder. Daniel Snyder has been known as one of the worst owners in professional sports, and this is a man, as you said, has said repeatedly that he would never see the name change. But when you see the potential dollars being lost from not being able to sell your merchandise in Walmart or being able to sell it in Target, and it has just been the protest has been going on for decades, not just recently, but this has been an issue really for the last 50 years. I mean, that's really when it got started with people starting to talk about it. And then really in 1992 is when people really started to talk about the name, because this was really when the protest gained national attention. So in Daniel Snyder's case, it's all about the bottom line. It's all about the dollar for him. And it's a move that he had to make. I mean, this was going to be a very huge financial loss for him if he had not buckled in changing the name.
We've seen other teams recently come under some increased pressure as well. The Cleveland Indians have said that they're going to re-examine the name. They've already done stuff in the past, like get rid of the Chief Wahoo mascot. The Atlanta Braves have come out recently also and said that they aren't looking to change the name, but they'll look at eliminating certain traditions like the chop. Do you think that this is the first domino to fall and that we might see more changes in the future?
It really depends. I mean, when you look at these other names, maybe not necessarily the team names, but maybe the images of these particular teams might change. They might go to a different style of logo, because you've had in recent years, for example, another team that was named the Redskins, Miami of Ohio, the college team, they had to change their name back in 1996 to the Red Hawks because of the increased pressure. And, of course, the University of North Dakota a few years ago changed the name from Fighting Sioux to Fighting Hawks because of this. So this might be the biggest one of them all, just because of the owner and his lack of you could say a lack of sensitivity to the name, or lack of knowledge about what the name actually meant to Native Americans and people that were against that name. But certainly when you look at the images that are being looked at, I know the Braves said that we're going to look into perhaps kind of eliminating the tomahawk chop, or looking at a different way of doing it. And, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs also use the tomahawk chop. So I think as far as the imagery of these teams and how things could be deemed offensive, I think this is certainly one of the biggest dominoes to fall. And I think depending on what the Washington team does with their new name and their new logo, because it's going to be a very long process, because not only do they have to change their logo, they got to change business cards. They have to do so many other things, and it's going to cost them a lot of money over the next few years to make a new trademark. That I think you'll see these teams look at what the Washington team does in deciding how they want to move forward with not just the name, but the imagery of their teams.
All right, Kumari, the big question on everybody's mind. What do you think the name should be? What do you think the new name should be? Personally, I love Red Tails and Red Wolves are my two favorites so far. What are your personal favorites?
I tell you, Warriors sounds pretty good to me. I do like Red Wolves because I think you can do so many different things with that logo. And I think I've seen that logo that they had, the one suggested logo. It's probably one of the coolest logos I've ever seen. But certainly something to just completely get away from the name. You look at the other teams in Washington, you got the Capitals, you got the Nationals. Maybe they can play off of that. There's been one suggested being Presidents. But I'd say Red Wolves is pretty good to me. I don't know of anybody other than I think Arkansas State that uses that name. So you probably wouldn't have a problem with trademarking it. Perhaps the Golden State Warriors might have something to say if Washington changes the name to the Warriors, which was what Daniel Snyder wanted the arena football team to be when they had an arena football team in Washington. He wanted to name it the Warriors, and I think he ended up making it the Valor. So maybe some kind of a play off of that. But certainly this is going to be a long process that might have to get input from different people. When the Tennessee Oilers moved from Houston to Tennessee, they actually got input from the league office and also from the fans before deciding on, of course, the Tennessee Titans, which they've used now since, I believe, the 1999 season. So this is not just it's not that they're gonna wake up and say, "Hey, we're the Red Wolves," and they're just gonna put wolves everywhere. This is gonna be a long process, and everybody's gonna have to have an input in this. Maybe even the league office might have input on it, but certainly this has been a long time coming for a lot of people, and it's gonna be fun to see what this name change is going to be, and it's going to take a while to get used to. So they've been called the Redskins since 1937.
Yeah, I still call the Los Angeles Chargers the San Diego Chargers, and that's been a couple of years now. So, yeah, lots of changes coming in the NFL. Kumari, thank you always for taking the time to talk with us on Catch Up.
Thanks for having me.
As the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season pummeled the greater New York City area with drenching rain on Friday, police responded to cries from a storm drain. The Suffolk County Police Department said on Facebook that, quote, "Someone heard tiny meows coming from a storm drain," end quote, and called 911 as the tropical storm named Faye came in full force. The call happened around 6 p.m. in Terryville, which is located on New York's Long Island, about 60 miles east of Manhattan. The 911 caller reported that a kitten had fallen into a storm drain. County police said Emergency Service Section Officer Michael Verrett then climbed into the drain and rescued the kitten. The kitten was adopted right away into its forever home.
Thanks for catching up on today's news with us. I'm Dan Kotnick.
And I'm Madeline Cum. Please be sure to catch up with us again tomorrow.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
As always, we appreciate you listening to Catch Up, and for even more content, follow Catch Up Digital on social media. Just search for @TimeForCatchUp.
We'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the stories we covered today. Just use the hashtag #PassTheCatchup on social media.
Catch Up is an official production of Public House Media.